Howdy chaps, and welcome back to another fantastic episode where we will continue on from where we left off on the EJ, on the dog leg. A little bit to do, but we should be able to nip it in the bud in this episode, and we can cross a couple more things off our list. So yeah, let's get stuck into it. Alrighty, so we got the door shut and it's aligned. This gap is nigh on perfect. This one's royally good. This one's, yeah, a bit tight, but it's still straight, and it's actually straight across the bottom. And the added bonus is the door doesn't stick out past the sill panel, which is hugely common on these old Holdens, especially the EJ ones. I don't know why, but quite a lot of them you see the doors stick out too far. I have personally studied the millionth Holden, which happens to be a gold EJ Holden Premier. It's actually in the Adelaide Birdwood Motor Museum currently, so it's easy to see and study. You don't, you got to get past like a 2-foot fence, but you can see it close enough that you can see that it's not perfect by any means, but it's probably the most looked after EJ out there. What I always thought was funny is what happened to the 999,999th Holden and the 1,000,001 Holden? Who ended up with those two? But anyway, I noticed on that one, even its doors sit flush with the sill panel, so if they stick out, your doors are gapped incorrectly. I've had to cheat this quite a bit to get this to fit. I've spent a long time getting these screws out, the ones that are in there, and adjusting the door, pulling the top out, pushing the bottom in, yada yada yada. And what I ended up doing to gain me a couple more millimeters is I took this hinge off. Because it's an aluminium hinge, I took it over to the folder here, because this is a dead flat piece of steel across here, clamped, ate a bit of sandpaper, and literally just sanded it back and forward till I shaved a couple millimeters off it, and that actually made up the difference to pull the hinge in. Well, it didn't pull the hinge in, it basically just took some meat out of the hinge, and the door was tucked in. So I'm happy with how the door fits the car, which tells me that I need to make the dog leg match the door. So we still got a gap here, but some of that is the fact that the door skin is wrong, and some of this, I have personally replaced a chunk of this car here, and obviously I've done that, so the only bit of original steel is like right there. So we've got some work to do here. Now from here it's not bad, but down here it's pretty good. Right here it's not offensive, but through here this is in too far, so I need to slice down that way and pull that out so it effectively lines up with that, if that makes sense. I haven't quite figured out how I'm going to do that yet, but as you can see it does stick in a long way. I mean, there'd be a few people out there who probably wouldn't care, but this bothers me because I'm a little bit crazy. So, and of course we're working with an aftermarket dog leg, aftermarket door skin. The quarter panel's been smacked, but we do have an original section here. But we've got, don't have everything going against us, we've got a few things going against us, and I probably will end up lead wiping in there and maybe add a little bit just to bulk it up, so it's not all bog. But I think we are making good progress. So enough chit chat, payback, give the dog a bone. I'm going to slice and dice. Alrighty, we do have to contend with a little bit of background noise, it's not too bad. So this is what I've had to do: slice and dice, and put my chisel in there and bend it out, and then tack it to see how we're going. Set that about there, and I think that's going to be passable. Obviously there's a little bit more tweaking to be done, but at least the outside height is right. Now I've got to basically come along and re-weld all of that back up, which is not fun because that's a pretty big gap. So judging by that, that proves how much just nearly everything about this panel is wrong. So if you get one and it does fit, consider yourself to be extremely lucky. I've got to drill some plug weld holes through here, down through here, and trim off this excess, because as you can see the factory one is quite short and the aftermarket one is extremely large. So a bit more welding and then I can just put a little slice in there, which is pretty straightforward, and move right along. But at least we've got it to a degree that's passable. Well, got to remember that, you know, you got to count in a few layers of paint, a bit of bog, a bit of filler. You know, that gaps will close up if you add in, you know, paint and things like that. So when it's all bare steel or with, you know, coat of etch, you got to leave a little bit of wiggle room for top coats, etc, etc. I mean, I've seen when I went through trade school, there was a VE Commodore body shell that Holden had donated years ago, and it had been painted so many times there wasn't a door gap to be seen, and it was all base coat. It wasn't any clear or anything like that. It had just been painted with mountains and mountains and mountains and thousands of times with base coat, and it literally had no door gaps. Couldn't open them, not one bit. Like, gone. It had that much paint on it. So you can close gaps up with a bit of paint too. So, which is mindful, I've got to make sure that I open this gap up a little bit here too. So that's that. Now I've got to re-weld it and grind it and do a bit of welding. Because the door is currently on, I'm going to not be able to film this bit, but I'll catch you up once I've effectively done that bit. So for me it'll be a couple hours, for you it'll be 30 seconds. Alrighty, that's probably as good as that's gonna get. The rest will probably just have to be made up with a bit of lead and maybe a bit of filler, but at least it's resembling the shape that it should be. It's not great, it doesn't look pretty, but it is functional. Unfortunately, as far as I'm aware, nobody makes a dogleg section aside from Ixnay on the Air Spare Say. So until some other mob make one that's better, you're going to be stuck with that one. And straight off the bat, you got to make it taller and you got to make it stick out more. And if you're an unlucky like me, you have to bend it back around, bend it up. I don't think I've ever reworked a panel as much as this one. So the disappointment level of the quality of that part was extremely high. I was very upset. But moving right along, I'm now going to put several layers of masking tape over this hole and then trace it out and cut it out, and then use that as a template to cut out a fresh piece of steel the right shape for there. It's going to be fairly straightforward, and then we'll just roll it into that curve, and then we'll do a little bit there, under there, and then we can weld up underneath, which is going to be about as fun as a brick to the face. And then we can actually go and cross off like 3 things off that list, which makes me a very happy girl. So pretty happy. And we're going to trim up some of the wheel arch. It's not too fantastic, but you know, a bit of lead down there, you know, through there, and you know, a bit of filler, and she'll be good as gold. Won't ever know. So I'll tape that up and make a template and get it happening. Alrighty, pretty quick and easy way to make a template. Put 2 layers of tape over the hole, and if you're lucky enough like me, your hands are covered in filth, you can just rub it through, just like shading the old coin under a piece of paper with a pencil back in the day, and you can cut out with a blazer aid a perfect template, which you can then take to a piece of steel, put it on top, and it will stick to it because it is actually sticky, and you can cut it out to the perfect shape, and you won't have to mess around too much with trying to guess it. You can pretty much get it pretty close straight away. So that's a little handy hint for those playing at home. Alrighty, if you're wondering if that hurt, the answer is yes, very much so. That was particularly unfun welding under there. But a rare moment I can now say, the dog leg is finished, the wheel arch is finished, the lower rear quarter is finished, the beaver panel is finished. I consider when I finish welding them to be finished. I just need to go in there and grind it, but I am taking this as a win because I'm going to go over here. I've already crossed off the dog leg because that was finished, but now I can go over here. Left hand wheel arch done. That sucks a little bit, but it's now done. That's not a big issue. They're not big issues. I actually welded one of them up already. Little baby hole, little holes. Floor pan. The last, there's only the driver's dog leg and a little bit of the sill panel and the floor pans, and that's pretty much it for the major stuff on this car. And then it's just fiddly little stuff and sort of, you know, fine tuning. Now that I've done everything in the black has now been replaced, I'm actually pretty happy. I test fitted the stainless before. These are actually surprisingly hard to get. I'm glad I have a pair. That sort of fits on snugly there. Yep, there you go. Actually, if I get my hand out of the way, it actually fits really quite well, and that's yet another reason why they rust out. Is that is a fantastic moisture trap. So pretty darn happy. I'm going to grind all under there, and I'm not going to bore you with that. But dog leg, wheel arch, lower quarter beaver panel. That's pretty good. I'm actually fairly happy. I'll catch you up once I figure out what I'm doing next, eh? A very proud moment for me right now. I have finished grinding, welding, and doing everything. Everything in the black has been replaced. Horrifying, I know, but it had to be done. Well, that's the life of a bad repair in the, I'm going to say the 70s. But here we go. Looking lovely again. I'm actually going to change it up because I am sick and tired of welding and grinding. I'm actually going to do a little bit of body work. I'm going to bare metal across there and try and blend in those two joins. I just feel like I need to change of pace because I've been doing a lot of metal work lately. A lot. Now some people would do, everybody's got their own way to body work, and I'm going to just do mine. I'm going to bare metal it and apply some filler in it, do some shaping, and carry on like that. As I say in the classics, you do you, I'ma do me. So let's get a little bit of shape back into this thing. Even though it's not too bad in effectively bare steel. Well, it's not bare steel, but it's got one coat of etch on it. It doesn't look too bad at all, actually. So let's do some shaping. Alrighty chaps, I'm running out of time once again, but I think that'll do for this episode. I don't know how good it will be, but that's after a little bit of body work. I've just roughed it out. I myself prefer to put the body filler over bare steel, because that's actually 9 times out of 10 what the manufacturers of the bog want you to do. I always read the data sheet, and for the one that I'm using it says put on bare steel. You can put epoxy down like Epitech, and body filler will stick to it. I don't know, I just want to get it done, and I'm little bit, you know, there is a budget with this car, and I haven't got any Epitech handy, and you don't always need it. So as long as you don't leave anything bare steel while you're halfway through something, you should be pretty right. And this is just how I like it, and this is how they actually train you to do it at trade school as well. It's always bog on bare steel. So it just happens to be in the resto game, it's fairly common to put Epitech down bog work and Epitech over the top of that to seal the bog work in. But you know, I think ultimately the idea is not to get your car wet. And but anyway, everybody has their own method, and this is mine, and if you don't like it, please remain silent. That's just me. Anyway, I've got to wrap up this video and go home, but I think for a repaired dog leg, replace wheel arch, quarter panel, beaver panel, I think we're actually starting to make some pretty good inroads. And actually, when I was staring at this section here, it actually looks right now too. So this style line here is actually, if you sort of follows a straight to the sill panel, so it actually works. It's a little bit low here, but I don't think that's going to be a big problem. And the upside being is, with my idea of keeping the filler away from the wheel arch, the rear arch looks really crisp, and it fools you into thinking the quarter panel is not full of filler. The other hint was, get yourself I think it's meant for housing and doing drywalls and stuff. One of those for applying filler, because then you can, when you put your little spatula on, you end up with like lines in between it. When you have one of those, you don't actually get that many lines, and it can cover a fairly large area. And it was very handy when the weld line went through on a diagonal over a ridge, so it could go over the hard of either side and just fill where it needed to be. So the quarter panels, for a quick roughing out, I only did about an hour's worth on it. It's not too bad. So I'll leave it with you chaps, and we'll catch you up on the next episode.